If you play the first move pawn e4, the king's pawn move, then some of your opponents will respond with the French defense pawn e6. It's considered one of the most solid openings for black, and today I'd like to share with you an absolutely deadly trap against it. And I'll show you a little later with statistics how you are very likely to trap your opponent with this trap. So here we're going into one of the classical lines of the French defense with knight going to d2. The purpose of this move is to prevent black from playing bishop b4 and pinning this knight, because now you can just push your pawn to c3 and drive this bishop away. Anyway, it's just a side note. Normally black will go knight f6, that's how they usually play in the French defense. You push the pawn forward, knight goes back, now bishop is developed here, and now the black's plan usually start playing c5, putting pressure onto this pawn and overall onto the white center. So you defend it once, they play knight c6 to attack this pawn once again with their knight, and you play knight to e2 to protect this pawn. And in this position, there are a couple options for black. One of the most played moves for black here is queen b6. And it makes a lot of sense, and again, it's very common for black in the French defense to play that way. They're bringing the queen out to increase the pressure onto this key pawn on d4. And if they do play queen b6, they are in trouble, but of course, completely unclear how, but you're gonna know this after watching this video. You play knight f3, protecting this pawn. Black will trade here on d4, and after that they have a tempting move bishop b4 check. And now you can move your king to f1. Usually you don't want to move your king and lose the right to castle, but in this case there is a really good reason to do that, because in the following lines white is gonna be absolutely winning. In this position, most frequently your opponents will castle. And after they castle, they fall into a very unexpected sacrifice, bishop takes h7. Now, there is a common tactical pattern known as a Greek gift sacrifice, where white sacrifices bishop like that, but this position looks different. It doesn't seem like white can execute it here. So even if your advanced level opponents can easily be tricked with this gambit. And then let me show you with statistics that you are actually willing to, use it and win games. I'm opening the database of games, and here in the corner on the right you can see the percentages of games played. So the top move here is d4, black's top response is d5, of course, you're going knight to d2. The top move by far is knight f6 here, you're playing pawn e5, knight goes back, again the main move bishop d3, almost everybody plays c5, pawn c3, almost everyone goes knight c6, knight e2, and here as you can see that they can either take on d4 immediately or play queen b6 first, which often would lead to the same line anyway, because after trading on d4 they would probably anyway bring their queen to b6, or at least many of them will. Or if they play queen b6 immediately, we're going knight f3, and at this point, again, the most played move is trade here on d4, you take here, the most played move is bishop b4, and instead of bishop d2, which most players play, you move your king to f1, and now majority of your pawns castle. Some of them actually play f6, and I'll show you how you can crush that as well a little later. But majority of your opponents will castle, and if you look at the players here, there are many 2500 rated players who are castling and falling right into the trap that I'm about to share with you. That just goes to show you how really practical and powerful this opening trap is. So in this position, most players are unaware of the fact that you can sacrifice your bishop over here on h7 and win the game afterwards very soon. But it's still not easy. After king takes, you're going to go knight to g5 check, and if the king goes backward, then at first it seems unclear how to proceed. Normally, in the Greek gift sacrifice, you're bringing your queen out here to h5, delivering queen h7 checkmate. But in this position it's impossible because the knight is blocking the way of the queen, and therefore even strong opponents who are aware of these tactics are often still trapped that way, because they just think that it doesn't work in this position because the queen cannot go to h5. But what's interesting about this particular case is that you can change the route of your queen and play queen d3, aiming for the similar idea, queen h7 checkmate, and if they try blocking it with pawn g6, you now are swinging your queen over to kingside anyway, and now queen h7 is coming, and there is not much black can do against this. If they move the rook to give the escape path to the king, then it's still queen h7 followed by queen f7. Very nice and elegant checkmate. We have just analyzed that moving black king, I should say, backward does not really work here. After queen d3, white is winning. What if they try moving their king forward? Let's say king goes to g6. Certainly that's not going to end well. The king is very exposed here, and you're still playing queen d3 check, attacking the king just as always. And now, well, if king moves, queen h7 would be still checkmate, so that doesn't really change anything. If they try to block with f5, then you play knight f4, check to the king, king goes to g5, queen g3 check. Again, it's pretty easy. The white's attack is very natural. You're just attacking the king and it's checkmate once again. Now let me show you the second trap that also works here in this position. We already know that castling is not an option for black. After that, you have these completely deadly sacrifice, bishop takes h7, calling the king out, and then checkmating the king within a few moves. So that's not an option for black. And if your opponent is smart enough to notice that, they may play f6, which is the second most played move in this position, and again, one of the common ways for black to proceed in the French defense overall. Now, instead of trading pawns here, you've got a lot more powerful move, knight to f4. Knight f4 puts pressure onto this pawn on e6, and there is no convenient way for black to protect it. That's why in real games they usually go ahead and take here on e5, but again, instead of recapturing this pawn, you're gonna play a more aggressive move, knight takes e6. And this knight on e6 is a completely, is a beast. It attacks this pawn on g7, potentially it's ready to jump on c7, maybe sometime in the future. Also, it controls the f8 square, therefore black can't castle, because, according to the rules, the king cannot cross the attacked square, therefore black is quite in trouble. The only chance that black has here is to say, wait a moment, it's all good, but how about me playing e4 with a double attack to the white's minor pieces? Am I just winning a piece? If black is wondering about this, then you can disappoint them by playing bishop to f4. Once again, you're ignoring their threats and you just keep pushing here. Bishop f4 provides an additional support for the c7 square so that either your bishop or a knight can land there on the next move and completely destroy black. There's a quite funny line here that if black decides to take this knight over here on f3, you can actually play bishop c7, and it's a pretty nasty trap because now the queen on b6 all of a sudden is trapped. Who would have thought that the queen on b6 could be gone, but that's exactly what's going on here. Instead, if black says, okay, pawn takes f3 is not an option, let me grab the bishop here on d3. In this case, you execute another idea, knight goes to c7, forking the king and the rook, and this is also deadly. If king goes somewhere, now knight takes a8, simultaneously attacking the queen over here. You already won the exchange and you keep your attack going. If, let's say, queen moves to b5, trying to protect this pawn on d3, you bring your knight back to c7, attacking the queen here on b5. The knight also looks at the pawn on d5. It can jump to e6 in the future, potentially. Your queen can go ahead and capture this pawn on the next move, potentially, or very soon. Again, you're heading material, the king is weak, you keep attacking, it's completely winning for white here. The French defense is not the most popular opening choice of black. Most frequently, they're gonna move their kingside pawn forward, and in that case, I recommend that you check out my video about the bishop's opening, which is a really great way against this. Also, you may wish to check out my free masterclass by clicking the link over there and achieve your chess goals in no time. Ciao.